In 1889, Seattle burned to the ground. Entire streets collapsed into glowing ash. Chimneys stood alone like tombstones in a smoking wasteland. City leaders faced a brutal choice: abandon the ruins or rebuild on top of them. They chose something far stranger. They buried the old city. And for decades, beneath the sidewalks of modern Seattle, another city existed in the darkness, complete with shops, hotels, gambling dens, and secret tunnels. Most people walk over it every day without knowing it's there. This is the lost city beneath Seattle. Seattle, the Emerald City, a global tech hub, a port city wrapped in rain and glass and steel. Millions of people cross Pioneer Square every year, heading to coffee shops and office towers. And almost none of them notice what lies directly under their feet. Look closely at the sidewalks in Pioneer Square, and you'll see strange purple glass tiles embedded in the concrete. They look decorative, almost artistic. They are not. They are skylights, and they shine down into a buried world. Brick walls, collapsed ceilings, iron doors sealed with rust, sidewalks that lead nowhere, storefronts frozen in time. This is the Seattle Underground, not a tunnel system, but an entire street grid left behind when the city rose upward. And to understand why it exists, we have to go back to the day Seattle burned. On June 6, 1889, Seattle was a frontier boomtown built almost entirely of wood. Wooden sidewalks, wooden storefronts, wooden warehouses packed with flammable goods. That afternoon, a cabinet maker accidentally overturned a pot of hot glue. It was a small mistake. Within minutes, it became an unstoppable inferno. Strong winds pushed the fire block by block. Firefighters ran out of water when the city's water pipes melted. People tried to save what they could, hauling furniture into the streets before fleeing. By morning, 25 entire city blocks, the entire business district, were gone. Miraculously, no one died, but the city was erased. What remained was a smoking field of rubble and a decision that would reshape Seattle forever. Before the fire, Seattle had a major problem: flooding. High tide regularly pushed seawater into the streets. Horse manure mixed with mud and sewage. Wooden sidewalks rotted and collapsed. So, when the fire cleared everything, city leaders made a radical decision. They wouldn't just rebuild, they would raise the city. Massive stone retaining walls were built along both sides of streets. Dirt was sluiced down from nearby hills and poured between them like wet cement. In some areas, the street level was raised more than 20 feet. But here's where things went wrong, or right, depending on how you look at it. Building owners didn't wait. They rebuilt immediately at the old ground level. New brick buildings went up where wooden ones had burned. Shops reopened. Hotels welcomed guests. Businesses resumed. Then, the streets began rising around them. Sidewalks climbed upward. Dirt was dumped between the retaining walls. Ladders connected doorways to the new height. When construction finally ended, entire first floors were buried. What had once been street level became basements. Seattle now had two cities, one in daylight, one in shadow. For years, the underground wasn't abandoned, it was alive. Shops operated in the darkness, tailors worked by dim light, restaurants served meals below the sidewalk, banks installed vaults underground. Those purple glass blocks above weren't decorative, they were installed so sunlight could filter down into the buried streets. Imagine walking down a brick sidewalk underground while horse-drawn wagons rolled overhead. You could look up through glass squares and see shoes passing above you. Seattle had become a vertical city. But the lower level came with dangers. Ceilings leaked, flooding was constant, rats thrived, floors collapsed without warning, light was poor, and criminals learned the tunnels faster than police ever could. And gradually, the underground became something else. But the buried city wasn't just forgotten. It became something far darker, a place where laws thinned and shadows thickened. As Seattle grew, the upper streets became respectable, the lower ones did not. By the early 1900s, the underground had turned into a maze of speakeasies, illegal gambling halls, opium dens, unlicensed brothels, and smuggling tunnels. It was perfect for crime. Police rarely ventured below. Entrances were hidden behind trap doors and false walls. Some tunnels connected directly to saloons and hotels. One popular saying claimed a man could get a haircut, buy a new suit, lose his money at cards, and visit a brothel without ever seeing the sun. One report described rooms packed with smoke so thick you could barely see your own hands. Gas lamps flickered along brick walls, casting distorted shadows across crowded tables. And the rats? They were said to be so large that visitors mistook them for small dogs in the dark. But the underground had another problem: disease. In 1907, Seattle was struck by a wave of bubonic plague. Health officials blamed the unsanitary tunnels. Rotting food, stagnant water, human waste trapped in basements that no longer drained properly. The underground was declared unsafe. Entrances were sealed, sidewalks were boarded over, and an entire city vanished. For decades, the underground was ignored. Storefronts filled with dust, signs faded, windows were bricked up, streets remained intact but inaccessible. Occasionally, a worker repairing a sewer line would break into a hidden corridor and discover brick sidewalks and doorways behind the walls. But for the most part, the city buried its own past. Until the 1960s. A journalist named Bill Spidel became obsessed with the tunnels. He organized cleanup crews and opened parts of the underground to the public. People descended into spaces no one had seen in generations, and they found a time capsule. Old bank vaults, rusted safes, bottles from forgotten bars, street signs still pointing to places that no longer existed. Seattle's first streets had survived under the city. Today, parts of the Seattle Underground are open for tours. You can walk along original sidewalks from the 1880s. You can stand in what used to be a clothing store and look up at purple glass squares, knowing that above you, modern Seattle is moving. Cars drive, people text, and beneath them, brick streets still exist. The old city is quiet now, but it isn't gone. Every city has layers. Most of them are metaphorical. Seattle's are physical. When you walk through Pioneer Square, you are walking on the roofs of buildings that used to be street level. Beneath your feet are windows that once looked out onto wagons and horses and storefronts. This wasn't an accident of time, it was a decision. Seattle didn't erase its past, it buried it and built on top of it. And that means something unsettling. Because if a city can disappear without leaving the surface, how many others are still waiting below us? So the next time you're in Seattle, watch your step. You may be walking over a bar where gamblers once whispered in the dark, a street where shopkeepers waited for sunlight through purple glass, or a city that refused to die when fire tried to erase it. This is the lost world beneath Seattle, and it's been there the whole time.